Bart is an author. He's an amazing author. He's a wild and woolly author. Countless books. He's got two of them I know with him here. Yodel in HiFi and Yodel. I do that right?
Yeah.
Not bad, huh? The secret history of yodeling around the world. He's DJ'd at Wreck This Mess since 1986 in New York, Paris, and Amsterdam. All that and more. And now here he is with some of that more for you, Bart Plantenga. Where is somebody go get Luke? Frank Sinatra was born in Hoboken, New Jersey.
There were people, and before there was language, there was song, and before there was song, there was the yodel. But first things first. I published 3 books in December of last year. Paris Scratch was a long time coming. A chapbook of 12 of the 365 Zen snapshots appeared in the mid-1990s to thunderous indifference. To write it, I wandered the streets of Paris and wrote a snapshot per day for a year. The Franprix, a supermarket, sells a wine called Lou Cajou for 7 francs. You can find it on the second to lowest shelf, just above the Clochard wines in plastic bottles. Certainly low budget, and just as certainly reliably okay. And it brings sinister tears of joy to my face when I realize I'd seen this same Lou Cajou before, indeed, on the wine list of the hopelessly chic New York restaurant Odeon in Tribeca for some $22. Could it be per bottle? Is there some revenge to be wrung from this instant to know that the New York Nouveau Riche are drinking the same wine preferred by Clochard, feeling affluent for an evening? I picture myself going up to strangers to point this fact out, but realize that the absurdity totally escapes these strangers who just want to be left to their own illusions. That's Hugo Zampa, a famous music. But the yodel speaks louder than words, and it beckons me away from fiction, demanding I pay attention. And that yodeling is not just about some kitsch, alpine, lederhosen, lonely goat herd thing. A reviewer described my first book, Yodel-EU, that's Olga Lowina, Dutch yodel on the cover. The Yodel-EU, the secret history of yodeling around the world, as the most complete study on any one subject ever written. But one day after it came out, an older lady waiting for the train to New York congratulated me on my book. She'd seen me on TV and she asked, "Did you include Olivio Santoro?" "No. Who is he?" Well, it turns out he was this teenage Italian-American yodeling cowboy who hosted a popular NBC radio show in the late 30s where he yodeled and sang the virtues of cheap sponsor Scrapple, maker of canned ground meat parts. But then came World War II, and he was fired because American security authorities became concerned that he might be secretly communicating with the Nazis via his yodeling. And that's how I began with Book 2, Yodel in HiFi. I couldn't find any recordings of Santoro, but I imagine he sounded like the Dutch boy wonder yodeler from the 1950s, Bobby Klein. My yodeling interest actually begins with my father's whoop. Not a yodel and not Tarzan, but probably influenced by it. It was meant to stave off the absurdity of life, a psychological correction. He used to drive me and my friends to the mall or bowling alley or wherever, and sometimes in a desolate, snowy parking lot, he might do a few donuts in the parking lot, punctuated by a cowboy-like, yeah, whoop, in an effort to regain some of his soul. It earned him the nickname Wild Bill among his friends. I don't have it on tape, but I do have that laugh.
Ui. So verrückt, Kunst da nur wieder, weiter. Ich hab mir Kunst gleich. Ich komm.
Ja, ich sehe das gern.
Hollywood. Make me richtig aus. Ja.
Yodel is often associated with cries of joy, which inevitably lead to associations with the orgasm. The propaganda in these softcore lederhosen yodel pointums from Bavaria, the propaganda of these films is simple: sex is good, healthy fun.
Yodelers often imitate birds. We hear Australia's classical yodeler Mary Schneider, Gerbil Reeves, a wandering American socialist in the vein of Woody Guthrie, and Minnesota's Dessert Sisters, Dutch related but living in Minnesota, who were nicknamed the Cackle Sisters because, well, yodelers also like to imitate trains. Thijs van Leer's legendary yodel came out of necessity. Focus's English wasn't good enough for a crossover hit in the English-American market, so he improvised and turned to yodeling. Hocus Pocus became an international mega hit in 1971.
Welcome, Focus.
Hocus Pocus by Focus. It's part of your inburger. Extended vocalists like the yodel because it launches their vocal cords beyond the norm into the realm of the uncharted. This is Fatima Miranda. From the deep and soulful to Goofy's yodel holler with the Olympic skier Hans Scholl's yodeling voice.
The ski jump.
Yodeling accommodates all musical genres. You can read them here, from heavy metal to prog rock to techno, house music, everything. But this is one of my favorite yodelers, Leon Thomas. Let's listen to this great jazz vocalist. That's two guys I met from Mukhertal. They yodel outdoors in the mountains, but also just in bars, hanging around with their friends. People yodel everywhere: the Philippines, Korea, Colombia, Italy, the Middle East, Mukhertal, and Australia, everywhere except Antarctica. In compiling my CD, Rough Guide to Yodel, I attempted to document yodeling globally. I collected 40 tracks, and suddenly 6 fell together, and the more I listened, the more I heard a fascinating series of interlinked yodel-like vocals that stretched around the globe. This is Central African Pygmy.
Doesn't the ooze from Sympathy for the Devil somehow fit into that?
We have it comes from the dogs.
It comes from the what?
The dogs.
American Indian singer Marvin Rainwater, who does a yodeling song about dogs. Booms, all sorts of animal sounds.